There was a time when marriage vows meant something sacred, when standing before family and friends to promise forever was the most important commitment a person could make. But what happened on Family Feud one Tuesday afternoon in October 2024 would remind everyone watching why those vows still matter. When Steve Harvey heard a contestant mock his own wife on national television, what he did next left the studio in complete silence and proved that some lines should never be crossed. If you believe in the sanctity of marriage and want to see real wisdom in action, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel, because what you are about to witness will restore your faith in standing up for what is right. The cameras were rolling. The audience was energetic. Two families stood ready to compete in what everyone assumed would be another entertaining episode of America's favorite game show. But contestant Marcus Thompson, a 38-year-old sales manager from Detroit, Michigan, was about to learn a lesson about respect that would change his life forever. Marcus Thompson walked onto the Family Feud stage with the kind of swagger that immediately caught attention. He was tall, dressed in a sharp navy suit, and carried himself with the confidence of someone who was used to being the center of attention. His family, the Thompsons from Detroit, had traveled all the way to Los Angeles for this taping, and Marcus clearly saw himself as the star of the show. Standing next to Marcus was his wife of 12 years, Jennifer Thompson. She was a quiet, elegant woman in her mid-30s, wearing a modest blue dress and a nervous smile. Jennifer worked as an elementary school teacher and had taken time off from her classroom to be here. Their two children, 9-year-old Sophia and 7-year-old Michael, sat in the audience with Marcus's mother, watching their parents compete on television. What the audience did not know was that the Thompson marriage had been struggling for the past 2 years. Marcus had become increasingly focused on his career, often working late nights and weekends. He had developed a habit of making jokes at Jennifer's expense, dismissing her concerns, and treating their marriage like it was a burden rather than a blessing. Jennifer had suggested marriage counseling multiple times, but Marcus always brushed it off, saying they did not need help and that she was being too sensitive. Jennifer's parents had taught her that marriage required patience, sacrifice, and unconditional love. She had been raised in a home where her father treated her mother with dignity and respect, even during difficult times. But Marcus had grown up in a different environment. His father had left when Marcus was young, and he had watched his mother struggle to raise 3 children alone. Somewhere along the way, Marcus had developed a defensive attitude about marriage, seeing it as something that trapped people rather than something that elevated them. The game began normally enough. The Thompson family faced off against the Martinez family from Arizona. Steve Harvey went through his usual routine, asking survey questions and delivering his characteristic humor. Marcus answered a few questions correctly, earning points for his team. But then came the moment that would change everything. Steve Harvey asked a survey question that seemed innocent enough. Name something a husband does that makes his wife roll her eyes. The question was designed to be lighthearted, the kind of playful relationship humor that Family Feud was known for. Marcus buzzed in first. He had a big grin on his face, clearly ready to make a joke. Existing, he said loudly, then laughed at his own answer. Just breathing in the same house makes my wife roll her eyes. Am I right, Jennifer? The studio audience gave a scattered, uncomfortable laugh. Jennifer's smile faltered for just a moment, and she looked down at her podium. Steve Harvey's expression changed slightly. He had been in this business long enough to recognize when humor crossed a line into disrespect. Existing, Steve repeated, his tone more measured than usual. He looked at the board. Survey says. The answer was not there. Not on the board, Marcus. The other family got a chance to answer and eventually won that round. But Marcus was not done making jokes about his marriage. During the next break, while the families were switching positions, Marcus leaned into the microphone and said to Steve, "You know how it is, Steve. Happy wife, happy life, right? But what if you have an unhappy wife? Then you are just out of luck." Again, there was that uncomfortable laughter from some audience members. But others remained silent. Jennifer stood next to Marcus, her hands clasped in front of her, her smile now completely gone. She looked like she wanted to disappear. Steve Harvey did not laugh. Instead, he put his cards down and walked closer to Marcus. Hold up, Steve said, raising his hand. Marcus, let me ask you something. How long have you been married to this beautiful woman next to you? Marcus seemed pleased to have Steve's attention. 12 years, he said, puffing out his chest slightly. 12 long years. 12 long years. Steve repeated slowly. The way he said it made it clear that he had caught the implication. So marriage has been long for you. Like a prison sentence you are serving. Marcus laughed nervously. I mean, you know how it is, Steve. Marriage is work, right? Sometimes it feels like more work than my actual job. The audience was completely quiet now. Jennifer's eyes were glistening with unshed tears. Steve Harvey looked at Marcus for a long moment, then looked at Jennifer, then back at Marcus. What happened next would become one of the most powerful moments in Family Feud history. Marcus, Steve said, his voice firm but not angry, I am going to stop this game right now and talk to you about something that I think is more important than any survey question we are going to ask today. The production crew looked at each other, uncertain. Steve Harvey rarely stopped taping like this. But Steve was not finished. You see, Marcus, I have been married 3 times in my life. The first 2 marriages did not work out, and I will tell you why. It was not because marriage was too much work. It was not because my wives were difficult. It was because I did not understand what marriage really meant. I treated it like it was something that was supposed to serve me, make me happy, make my life easier. And when it did not do that, I thought the problem was with marriage itself. Steve paused, letting his words sink in. The entire studio was hanging on every word. But then I met my wife Marjorie, and she taught me something that changed my whole life. Marriage is not about what you get. It is about what you give. It is about waking up every single day and making a choice to honor the person who chose to build a life with you. And when you stand in front of God, your family, and your friends and make vows to someone, those vows are not a joke. They are sacred. Marcus's smile had completely disappeared. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. Steve turned to Jennifer. Mom, with your permission, I would like to ask you a question. Jennifer nodded, wiping at her eyes. How long have you been feeling disrespected by your husband? Steve asked gently. Jennifer's voice was quiet when she answered, but the microphone picked it up clearly. A long time, Mr. Harvey, a long time. The audience was completely silent. Some people had tears in their eyes. This was not entertainment anymore. This was real life unfolding on national television. Steve looked back at Marcus. See, that is what I thought. Because a man who loves and respects his wife does not make jokes about her on national television. A man who understands the blessing of having a good woman by his side does not treat marriage like it is a burden. Marcus tried to defend himself. I was just joking around, Steve. Jennifer knows I am just playing. But Steve shook his head. No, Marcus. Words matter. The way you talk about your wife matters. When you call 12 years of marriage 12 long years, when you say existing in the same house makes her roll her eyes, when you talk about her like she is the problem in your life, that is not joking. That is disrespect. And I am not going to stand here on my show and let that happen without saying something about it. Steve walked over and stood between Marcus and Jennifer. I want to tell you something, Marcus. Do you know what I see when I look at your wife? I see a woman who has stood by you for 12 years. I see a woman who gave you 2 beautiful children. I see a woman who took time off from her job to come here and support you. I see a woman who is still standing next to you right now, even after you embarrassed her on national television. Jennifer was crying openly now, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of finally being seen and valued. Steve continued. And you know what else I see? I see a woman who is one harsh word away from giving up on this marriage. Because you can only disrespect someone for so long before they realize they deserve better. Marcus's face had changed completely. The swagger was gone. The jokes were gone. For the first time, he looked genuinely scared. He looked at Jennifer, and he saw the truth in Steve's words written all over her face. Marcus, I am going to ask you a question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer, Steve said. Do you love your wife? Yes, Marcus said immediately. Yes, I love her. Then why do you treat her like you do not? Steve asked. Why do you make jokes at her expense? Why do you talk about your marriage like it is a prison sentence? Marcus opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. He looked lost, like he was genuinely trying to figure out the answer to that question himself. Jennifer spoke up, her voice stronger now. Can I say something, Mr. Harvey? Please, Steve said, gesturing for her to speak. Marcus was not always like this, Jennifer said. When we first got married, he was kind and attentive. He made me feel valued. But somewhere along the way, he started treating our marriage like it was a competition he had to win, or a burden he had to carry. He stopped seeing me as his partner and started seeing me as an obstacle to his success. She turned to Marcus. I have asked you so many times to go to counseling with me. I have begged you to talk to someone about why you have become so bitter about our marriage. But you always refuse. You always say I am being too sensitive, that I cannot take a joke. But Marcus, these are not jokes. These are wounds. And I am tired of bleeding. The audience was completely absorbed. This was not just a game show anymore. This was a marriage hanging in the balance. Steve looked at Marcus. Do you hear what your wife is saying to you? Do you understand that she is giving you a chance right now to choose your marriage, to choose your family, to choose to be the man she needs you to be? Marcus's eyes were filled with tears now. When he spoke, his voice cracked. I did not realize, I swear, Jennifer, I did not realize I was hurting you this badly. But you did realize, Jennifer said firmly. I have told you, I have shown you, I have cried in front of you. You knew. You just did not want to change. Steve let that truth hang in the air for a moment. Then he said something that would resonate with millions of viewers. Marcus, here is what I have learned about marriage. You can either be right, or you can be married. You cannot be both. Right now, you have a choice. You can defend your behavior, make more excuses, and keep treating your wife like she is the problem. Or you can humble yourself, admit that you have been wrong, and commit to doing the hard work of becoming the husband she deserves. Marcus looked at Jennifer, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in years. He saw the pain in her eyes, the exhaustion, the hope that was barely still alive, and something broke inside him. I am sorry, Marcus said, and for the first time, his words sounded genuine. Jennifer, I am so sorry. You are right. I have known I was hurting you, and I did not want to face it because then I would have to admit that I was the problem, not you. I would have to do the work to change, and that scared me. He took a deep breath. I will go to counseling. I will do whatever it takes, because I do not want to lose you. I do not want to lose our family, and I do not want to be the kind of man who treats the best thing in his life like it is a burden. Steve Harvey stood back and let the moment unfold. Jennifer and Marcus stood facing each other, tears streaming down both their faces. The audience watched, completely invested in whether this marriage would survive. Jennifer, Steve said gently, the ball is in your court. Your husband has just made a public commitment to change. Only you know if you believe him, and only you know if you have the strength to give him another chance. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I meant my vows, Mr. Harvey, for better or for worse. I want my marriage to work. But Marcus, this is your last chance. If you do not follow through, if you go back to making jokes and dismissing my feelings, I am done. I deserve better than that, and our children deserve to see their mother treated with respect. Marcus nodded. I understand, and I promise you I will do the work. Steve looked at both of them. I am going to do something I have never done on this show. We are not going to finish this game today. Instead, I am going to give you both my personal phone number, and I am going to connect you with one of the best marriage counselors I know. This is not about the game anymore. This is about your family. The audience erupted in applause. Steve raised his hand for quiet. But I want to say something to everyone watching. What you just witnessed is not entertainment. This is real life. This is what happens when we stop valuing marriage, when we stop treating our spouses with the dignity and respect they deserve. He continued, I get letters every day from people who tell me they wish they had fought harder for their marriage. People who made the same mistakes Marcus was making, who thought jokes were harmless, who put their pride before their partnership, and now they are alone, wishing they could go back and do things differently. Steve looked directly at the camera. If you are watching this and you recognize yourself in Marcus, if you have been making jokes at your spouse's expense, if you have been treating your marriage like it is a burden instead of a blessing, I want you to stop right now. I want you to go to your husband or your wife, and I want you to apologize. I want you to recommit to doing the hard work of building a strong marriage. He turned back to Marcus and Jennifer. Marriage is the hardest thing you will ever do. It requires you to die to yourself every single day, to put someone else's needs before your own, to be patient when you want to be angry, to be kind when you want to be right. But it is also the most rewarding thing you will ever do, if you do it right. The cameras stopped rolling, but what happened after the taping was just as important as what happened during it. Steve Harvey personally called his friend, Dr. Michael Williams, one of the top marriage counselors in the country, and arranged for Marcus and Jennifer to begin intensive therapy. Over the next 6 months, the Thompsons went through a transformation. Marcus attended individual therapy to understand why he had developed such a defensive attitude toward marriage. He worked through the pain of his father's abandonment and learned healthier ways to communicate. Jennifer attended therapy as well, learning to set boundaries and express her needs clearly. Together, they went to marriage counseling every week. It was not easy. There were moments when both of them wondered if it was worth it. But slowly, things began to change. Marcus stopped making jokes at Jennifer's expense. He started actively listening when she talked. He made time for their marriage, scheduling regular date nights, and turning off his phone when they were together. Jennifer learned to trust again. She saw the genuine effort Marcus was making, and she matched it with her own commitment to healing their relationship. She stopped walking on eggshells, afraid to upset him, and started being honest about her feelings. When the episode finally aired 3 months after the taping, the response was overwhelming. The clip of Steve Harvey confronting Marcus went viral within hours. It was shared millions of times across social media platforms, with people from all walks of life commenting on how it had impacted them. Marriage counselors reported an increase in couples seeking help, many of them specifically mentioning the Family Feud episode as the catalyst. Men reached out to apologize to their wives. Women found the courage to demand the respect they deserved. Churches used the clip in marriage enrichment courses. Relationship podcasts discussed it for weeks. 6 months after the taping, Family Feud invited the Thompsons back for a follow-up segment. When Marcus and Jennifer walked back onto that stage, they were different people. They held hands. They smiled at each other. The tension that had been so visible before was gone. Steve Harvey greeted them with warm hugs. "Tell me what has happened since we last saw you," he said. Marcus spoke first. "Mr. Harvey, you saved my marriage. When you stopped that taping and called me out, it was the wake-up call I needed. I had been so blind to how my behavior was destroying my family. Going to counseling was the hardest thing I have ever done because it forced me to look at myself honestly. But it was also the best thing I have ever done." Jennifer added, "We are not perfect. We still have hard days, but Marcus is showing up now. He is doing the work, and I can see the man I fell in love with 12 years ago coming back." Steve smiled. "You know what I love about this? You both made a choice. Marcus, you chose to humble yourself and admit you were wrong. Jennifer, you chose to give him a real chance to change. That is what marriage is supposed to be. 2 people choosing each other every single day." The segment showed footage of the Thompson family at home. Marcus helping their daughter Sophia with her homework. Jennifer and Marcus cooking dinner together, laughing and working as a team. The family sitting down for dinner without phones, actually talking to each other. Michael and Sophia talking about how their parents seemed happier. Steve announced that his foundation would be launching a new initiative to provide free marriage counseling to couples who could not afford it. What I learned from Marcus and Jennifer is that sometimes people want to save their marriage, but they do not have access to the resources they need. We are going to change that. The follow-up segment ended with Marcus and Jennifer renewing their vows in a small ceremony on the Family Feud stage. Steve Harvey officiated. Their children stood beside them, and this time, When Marcus made his vows, there were no jokes, no sarcasm, no distance. Just a man promising to love and honor the woman who had given him a second chance. Years later, the Thompson family became advocates for marriage enrichment. Marcus started speaking at men's groups about the importance of respecting your wife. Jennifer volunteered as a mentor for young married women, helping them navigate the challenges of building a strong partnership. The episode became one of the most referenced moments in Family Feud history. It was studied in communication courses, discussed in sociology classes, and used as a teaching tool in premarital counseling sessions. Media scholars called it a watershed moment in reality television, proving that authentic human transformation could create more compelling content than manufactured drama. Steve Harvey often reflected on that day in interviews. "I have hosted thousands of episodes of Family Feud," he would say. "I have seen people win money, celebrate victories, and make memories. But the day I stopped a taping to save a marriage, that was the day I understood the real power of having a platform." Marcus and Jennifer's story reminded people that marriage was not something to mock or take lightly. It was a sacred commitment that required constant effort, genuine respect, and the humility to admit when you were wrong. Their transformation showed that it was never too late to change, never too late to choose your family, never too late to become the person your spouse needed you to be. The couple's children grew up watching their parents model what a healthy marriage looked like. Sophia and Michael learned that love was not just a feeling but a choice, not just romance but respect, not just attraction but commitment. They learned that their father's willingness to admit he was wrong and do the hard work of change was one of the bravest things a person could do. 10 years after that fateful episode, Marcus and Jennifer celebrated their 22nd wedding anniversary. They returned to the Family Feud stage one more time for a special anniversary episode. Steve Harvey welcomed them back with genuine joy. "When I look at you two now," Steve said, "I see what is possible when people refuse to give up on their marriage. You could have divorced. You could have gone your separate ways. But you both made a choice to fight for your family, and look at what you built." Marcus reflected on that original taping. "The old me would have been angry that you called me out on national television. I would have been embarrassed and defensive. But the man I am now thanks you every single day for having the courage to tell me the truth I needed to hear." Jennifer added, "You gave me permission to demand respect in my marriage." So many women are afraid to speak up because they have been taught to just endure, to keep quiet, to accept whatever treatment they receive. But you showed me that I deserved better, and you showed Marcus that being a real man means honoring your wife. The anniversary episode featured testimonials from other couples who had been inspired by the Thompson story. There was the couple who had been on the verge of divorce, but decided to try counseling after watching the episode. They were still together, stronger than ever. There was the young new-lied couple who made a pact never to speak disrespectfully about each other, using Marcus and Jennifer as a cautionary tale and an inspiration. There was the older couple married for 40 years, who said the episode had reinvigorated their commitment to treating each other with dignity. Steve Harvey used the anniversary episode to launch a nationwide initiative called Words Matter, Building Marriages That Last. The program provided free resources, counseling referrals, and educational materials to couples at every stage of marriage. Thousands of couples signed up in the first month alone. As the episode drew to a close, Steve made one final statement that would be quoted for years to come. "Marriage is not about finding the perfect person. It is about being the right person for the one you chose." Marcus and Jennifer proved that when you combine humility with commitment, when you match honesty with hope, and when you choose respect over pride, you can build something beautiful. The cameras panned to Marcus and Jennifer standing hand in hand, their children beside them, their marriage stronger for having been tested. The audience stood and applauded, not just for a couple who had saved their marriage, but for the reminder that love was not just a feeling but a choice we make every single day. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the importance of treating your spouse with respect and dignity, make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear this message today, because marriages are worth fighting for, families are worth protecting, and sometimes the most important words we can say are simply, "I am sorry, and I will do better." That is the kind of legacy worth leaving, and that is the kind of love worth choosing every single day.